Hello, beautiful friend. Welcome back to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. So, today I want to start the podcast off with a little bit of a story of how the universe works. Have you ever been thinking about something and the universe just keeps giving you steps to follow that truth or to follow that path, or you're wanting something and then suddenly the teacher shows up, or suddenly you get this inclination to yeah, I'm going to journey down that path and journey down that path. And then you take another step and another door opens up. And then maybe one door closes, but then that's for a short period of time before another door opens up. So I set that up because that's exactly what has been happening to me over the past several months. I've been going down this path of really understanding as I'm transitioning into menopause and early menopause about what is all of this? What is this all going on in my body, in my brain, and how to navigate this with grace, ease, joy, finesse, and embrace this next phase of my life. So I got certified as a trainer with bioidentical hormones. I've taken numerous classes. I've opened up here about how I went to A4M, which is his anti-aging conference focusing on bioidentical hormones. I've met multiple practitioners in this space. I've bringing on even more practitioners onto my podcast to talk about this because I really think the information that has been out there around menopause is that women suffer silently through this. And we're really not talking about all that goes on for the body, all that goes on for the brain. And as I'm learning more about this, I'm wanting to share it with you and so many others. And as I've been opening up with my friends, as I've been opening up in just communities where I'm interacting with other women, they're asking me, Sherry, put together something for me. I really want to learn because the way you describe it makes me understand. And I feel uncomfortable maybe bringing this to my primary care physician or to bring this to my physician, or I don't know the right questions to ask. I just helped one of the ladies at a retreat I was in understanding her laboratory work. And so I have decided that I'm going to do a Mastering Menopause class. And it's a 4-week series class really to help women understand and know what options are available to them so they don't have to suffer in silence. You know, it could be anything from the common symptoms that we hear about, the hot flashes and the night sweats, helping some of my friends as they're navigating sex that has turned painful or low libido, or how to generate more intimacy in their marriage. Losing weight. Many women are really struggling with the battle of the bulge in the middle and that belly fat. And what modalities can they be doing? In addition to what questions should they be asking for their provider, and how could they be more educated on this topic and really come together to talk about it in an honest, open format? I want to ask you questions. I want feedback. So I want to be that resource for you if this is something you are struggling with. I would say this course is really geared towards those in perimenopause. And perimenopause is that 10 to 15 years before actual menopause happens. And menopause is just one point in time. So you hit menopause at one point in time, and then you transition to early menopause, and then to mid-menopause, and then into late menopause. So this would really be ideal because I'm going to give you so many strategies, so many tips on what to be looking out for, how to manage your symptoms to get to the root cause during this time. And it's really designed for the woman in that perimenopause to early menopause timeframe. Because what I'm finding is there's just a lack of awareness on what we can be doing to navigate this very important transition. This is nothing to be ashamed of. Every woman goes through menopause. And why aren't we educated about our bodies? Why has science neglected the woman in menopause? And why do we get so dismissed? And that's just a normal sign of aging. Or don't worry about it, get used to it, right? Or there's nothing we can do about that. Oh, feeling depressed? Take an antidepressant. Oh, can't sleep? Take a sleep medication. But these medicines, I don't say they're bad. They just don't help you get to the root cause. So If you want to be on an antidepressant for life, right, that's one route you can go. And maybe some women do need that. There's no shame in needing medication. But let's talk about the bigger concept of why the blues come in the first place. It's just like we've opened that discussion around postpartum, the blues, right? Postpartum depression, right? There had been so many women suffering in silence. And finally, there were women speaking out that, hey, after I deliver a baby, and even for a year out or 2 years out, my hormones are off balance because something is happening that I am not feeling happy. I am not feeling joyful. I feel like I'm losing myself. And a lot of these same symptoms I'm hearing from my friends, from colleagues, from people around the same age of like, this is happening to me during this time of perimenopause and into that menopause shift. And as I talked about on prior podcasts, right, there's so much we can be doing to take charge of our health. And that's really what I want to empower you to do, is to take charge of your health. Know your labs. Know what to ask for. Know what to be monitoring. Know what to look for. Know what's junk and what's not junk, and what, you should really be advocating for, because this is your body and you really want to set it up in your 50s so it continues to thrive in its 60s, 70s, 80s, right? You want to set it up even in your 60s to make your 70s and 80s to be amazing, healthy, vibrant, happy years. And so I want to really put down a framework for women to really understand their bodies, and so that they have the right knowledge going forward and how to take care of it. And yes, if we need medication, we can do that. But it's not just to throw a medication at something because we're really not looking at the root cause. I really want you to know what the root cause is of a lot of what goes awry in a woman's body as it changes, as it goes through this massive hormonal shift. Just like a massive hormonal shift occurs in pregnancy, a massive hormonal shift occurs in menopause, and nobody is educating women on this. I can't say nobody. There are people. There are people out there certainly educating women on this, but I think there should be more. And so I will be doing a course coming up in May. It'll be on Tuesdays. You could get more information about this course on my website, epicu.com, called Mastering Menopause. And I really want to empower you to capitalize on your best health in this very massive transformation in your life, which is beautiful. It can be a beautiful journey into that next foray of our life. And if women are living until their 90s, just think about that. A third of our lifespan, up to a half of our lifespan, is spent in the menopause years. And these aren't years we're washed up, nothing's working, we're complaining all the time. Nobody wants that lifestyle. We want to be vibrant, young, and healthy. And so I want to talk to you about how to do that. And on these calls, I'll be leaving time for question and answer so you could get your specific questions answered. All right, so more to come on that. But if you want more information, please go to my website. So today's episode, I really want to focus on a couple of things. I'm going to weave together some various information that really has motivated me in when I'm working with my one-on-one clients. So I revamped my one-on-one program, and I talked about that on my revamp of my website. And so I'm getting the pleasure of working with some of my old clients on some new problems that they want to work on, or new ways that they want my help. And I want to talk about how there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And that's why I've redesigned the one-on-one coaching to have that more tailored effect. So for instance, there are some women I work with and they want that slow, easy, don't take me too far out of my comfort zone, right? Because I'm committed to change, but I want to do it in a small fashion, little by little. Absolutely, right? And of course, it's those little changes that all of a sudden lead to big changes over time, right? As long as we're willing and able to keep doing them, right? We know that those will compound and give us tremendous effects months down the road. Now, I also want to advocate for those women who are like go-getters, right? They want the results now. And yes, that can happen, but we have to make it sustainable. So when you're looking at how fast you want to change, I think it's important for your therapist, your coach, your personal trainer, right, to know like, hey, how much time are you going to give to this, right? I don't want to use the word such as motivated, but how committed, right? Because motivation is fleeting. Commitment is different than motivation. And so we talked about like the 5 different levels of commitment, right? On a previous podcast, I had talked about that, how there's just the wishers who aren't doers. Then there's the people who put in a little bit of effort, and they're the dabblers, right? They put in some effort and they stop. And so you can get change that way, but it'll be just much slower if you're dabbling versus the people who are like, I'm all in, whatever it takes. Give me the fastest way there and I will do it. And so I want to talk about this process where you can get faster change and what that looks like. Because I don't want us to think change just happens one way. It doesn't. It is meeting yourself where you're at or meeting the person where they're at if you're getting coached. So I love to ask my clients like, hey, what is your timeline for this? How aggressive do you want to be with this? How much action are you willing to put forth? Because it does come down to, are you willing to take action and how much time? Not necessarily like hours per day, but how committed you are to doing the actions. That's what I mean from a time perspective. As we're working on time management, it gets a little interesting, the conversations inside Epic U, because we think that things are going to take so much time. But we can also condense that time as long as we're doing the right actions for the right amount of time, right? So time management is just more than 2 hours a day, right? Because some days we might not even need 2 hours to do all the things that we want to do. So changing faster is certainly an option for you. Definitely if you have high commitment. I've seen women have really high commitment to getting a goal, an outcome, or doing certain actions, and they are fully in and they get it done. Now, I don't see many people can do this for months on end, right? So these are these quick wins that we could get in along the way to our journey to greatness. Because what we know is that when you're changing, whether it's small steps or massive leaps, change is uncomfortable either way. So if I tell you to drink one less drink a week, you're going to find that a little uncomfortable if you're drinking, right? And then if I tell you to drink 10 less drinks a week, that might be a bigger ask. That might be a bigger change, right? That might require more of you, more commitment from you to get that change. But some people are up for that. Just like using the example of weight loss, right? Some people want to go slow and steady and listen to their bodies as always, right? We always don't want to go faster than our bodies because we don't want to injure our bodies, because when we injure our bodies, what happens? We have to take a break, right? And that can set us back more so than going at it slowly. So we want to make sure that the body can handle what we're asking it to do. But if we want to get like a big pounds off, like a weight drop pretty quickly, we can do that. We just want to make sure it's also the right type of weight. We just don't want to dump a ton of water weight only for that to come back on and then deflate us later on in the journey. So we can get change quicker. We just have to be willing to know what process we're following. Are we following the fast change? I want quick results. I want to go all at it. I'm super committed and I could do this type of commitment for a month. Or does it feel better in my body to go a little bit slower to get lasting change, because I know I'm going to be developing this into my repertoire of a daily habit? So, and then you could do both, right? You could be working on the small daily habit and incorporating that while you're still working on the bigger habits. Because whether we change a little bit or a lot, I want to make the argument that the brain is still going to find it discomforting. If you never go to the gym, and then you're asking your body and brain to go there once a week or twice a week versus 5 times a week, every time you start going, it's going to feel a little bit, oh, do I belong here? I don't know what to do when I get here. This is a little uncomfortable to me. I'm not used to being in this environment, right? So the change, whether you're going once or twice a week or a couple more times than that a week, it's still going to be uncomfortable. Same with cutting back and drinking. It's still cutting back. The brain is still going to find it uncomfortable because you're asking the brain to do something it hasn't been doing or hasn't been keeping track of. So we know that our brains, when you ask to do new things, sometimes gets a little uncomfortable and gets it nervous. It's like, uh-oh, now you're asking me to change. Okay, I think I could do that today, but then when tomorrow comes and I have to actually do the change, right? We get a little bit like, well, maybe I'll just put it off till tomorrow. Well, maybe I can't do that today. And then we start to fall back on things like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. All the things start saying and coming in because our brain is nervous. It's anxious. It's like action time. And our brain is like, okay, it was just nice to think about this, but it's not so nice to think now that I have to take action on it. And for some of my clients, they'll say, kind of feel so fearful. Like, I'm really afraid. I'm really afraid. Like, what do I do when I get there? And I don't want all these uncomfortable feelings. How a lot of people will handle this is they will slow down. They will say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start next week. Now's not the right time, right? So they're backpedaling. They're not taking the action. They're taking inaction because it feels so uncomfortable. And they're convincing themselves that they need to go slower. So sometimes small change can be so small and so uncomfortable for so long that you're just drawing out and prolonging the discomfort. So if you find yourself in that category where you keep putting it off, keep procrastinating, maybe you should think about getting faster change because that could excite you. And that could be excitement can maybe override the anxiety, right? Because you're going to like, okay, I'm in. So just to apply this to my life, I'm in on this 30-day challenge that I'm doing for myself in April, 30 days to get it done. And it's uncomfortable. And my brain doesn't like it. And my brain wants to say, oh, it's not going to work, right? Because I'm making my brain more uncomfortable by embracing this challenge to get change quicker. Now, I'm making it more uncomfortable, but on the flip side of that same coin, my brain is also more excited. It's like, ooh, let's see what we can achieve in these 30 days. Ooh, let's see if you can actually do this challenge. And by changing faster and getting there quicker, my discomfort level starts to shrink. So if I keep plodding along with small changes, right? I'm maybe doing it a little more into the discomfort, a little more discomfort, a little more discomfort. But over time, that discomfort line is really long. And when you quit it fast and quick, think about you can potentially shorten the discomfort level because now you've shifted into taking so much action that by the end of those 30 days, you could be like, yeah, I love this. This feels great. I want to keep going. And this is the new me. So changing faster, the discomfort may go away sooner. And you learn a lot about yourself. You learn, yes, I can do all of these actions where I was just struggling with the one action when I gave one action to my brain. Now that I've given myself several actions to take each day, my brain is like, okay, number 1 is done. Let's go to number 2. Oh, number 2 is done. Let's go to number 3. And then I start achieving quicker results. And that fuels me to do it all again the next day. Whereas if I'm stalling on just taking that one action and I keep stalling and I keep stalling and I keep stalling, your brain, like mine, might just say, you're failing. You're failing. You're not doing it. You say you want it, but you're not doing it. Right. And so that way of changing is slow, painful, and really hard. So I wanted to talk about on this podcast about, is it time to shift from wanting slow, habitual change, which is still good, to saying, hey, maybe I want to integrate some short bursts of fast change so I could change faster, so I can get closer to my goal quicker, so I could take more actions. And if that's the case, then let's set you up for success there. Because what we know about the brain and habits, right, is that they don't dig themselves. Habits are created. All habits. Habits of doing and habits of not doing are created. And they're created in the brain, and those ruts in the brain run deep. right? They become our comfort zone if we stay in the same rut. I'm going to stay with the same pattern of drinking. I would stay there for years until I understood it was just a habitual process that I was grooving more and more into my brain. Most of the time that we're in a rut, we're there because it's precisely where we've put ourselves. It's like, I just want to stay comfortable. Just keep giving me that self-soothing drink, and I don't have to think about other ways to cope. I don't have to think about tuning into myself. I could just zone out. I could just disconnect. I could just fly high. I could just be on a different planet. I could just have another glass and forget it all. I don't really have to do the inner work. And so we keep taking the action of drinking or overeating or overworking or procrastinating, whatever. We keep action that we keep doing, and that action becomes our habit. We become massive procrastinators. We become people that say we're going to do something and we don't do the action. Or we continue to do the action that we don't want, and that habit continues to grow. And it gets repeated because it's what we're used to doing, and now the brain feels safe doing it. We feel comfortable doing it. It's part of our identity. It's part of what we do. It's almost like the brain expects it. And that's why you have a witching hour, right? It's like the hours your brain expects to receive alcohol. Or if you're giving up sugar, right? You have the sugar cravings because your brain is expecting the reward of sugar, just like it's expecting the reward of alcohol. And so we keep repeating these habits, these behaviors, because honestly, it makes us feel safe, makes us feel comfortable, calms us down, and we feel like, yep, this is how the night usually goes. So the easiest way to make things more interesting, and notice the word interesting, is to simply stop repeating the habitual behavior. Then you're like woken up. Then you're like, oh my gosh, now I feel these feelings. Oh my gosh, now things are more present. Now my body feels more alive. What's going on? I'm just not on autopilot and numbing out. Like now I'm feeling things that maybe I don't want to feel, or maybe that feel discomforting to me. And we'll notice that we want to react on those things because those are our triggers. Oh, I have anxiety. Oh, I have stress. Oh, I don't know what the way to take the edge off. It's Thursday night and I haven't drank all week and I'm so good. I'm so good. Let me just have one glass to take the edge off, right? And that edge becomes our trigger. And we react to the trigger rather than what I talked in a previous podcast on is responding. Responding is a different place than reacting. And once you can see the difference in your own life, and honestly, I needed a coach to point this out to me because I thought I was responding. I'm like, no, I'm choosing to do it. But I wasn't, I was reacting. Even though I chose to react, I was still choosing to do the reaction rather than to choose the response that I wanted. So learning your triggers, super important, and removing those triggers so you can alter the habit. So you remove the trigger to alter your behavior. Now, this is not an overnight thing. It can go quicker. You can change faster, but you still have to use the process and identify each of the components appropriately so you're taking the appropriate action. So tiny changes, super important. Highly recommend. Tiny changes definitely do accumulate over time and they compound to give us big changes. However, if you want to change faster, just note that that is also available to you. And really, when you look at behaviors and habits, they are nothing more than actions that you take. And the more actions you take counter to that behavior, the more your brain will start to say, okay, we're changing faster. It's uncomfortable. But here's the thing, your identity starts to change quicker. And what do we know about forming new habits and breaking old habits? Is that to do it quickly, effectively, and sustainably. Now, quickly, we can do it slow or we can do it quickly, but definitely sustainably is that you change your self-identity. So when you're looking at doing habit change quicker, I always walk my clients through a process where we do an identity change as well along the way. So imagine I was your coach for stopping over drinking. And you're like, I want to cut my drinking down by 10 or 20%. And that's where some people start, right? And I just want to meet you where you're at and give you tools to be successful. But then I have some people to come to me and say, hey, I would love to reduce my drinking by 50 to 80% in a couple of weeks. Great. Now we're going to be working on your identity as well as the actions. Now, you can do the identity work alongside of it, but it's deeper level work. And that's why I have a whole course inside of Epic You about changing your identity. I have a whole course inside Drink Less Lifestyle about changing your identity. Because if you want to go faster, my friend, it really comes down to a couple of things. High commitment. You need a high level of commitment. And that could be just high out of the gates. Because what starts to fuel you, if you just have high commitment out of the gates, your momentum, oftentimes by taking numerous actions, will create more momentum and will keep up that commitment. So people are like, well, how do I know what my commitment's going to be a week or two from now? Well, you don't. You can't predict the future. Your brain would love to say, it's still going to be there. It's going to be high. Great. We can believe that. And that helps the brain along. But we truly can't predict what's going to happen 2 Thursdays from now. However, we do know if we have high commitment right now and we start acting on that commitment right now, we know that we are going to get the advantage of creating momentum, which then fuels commitment in the future. So I love when people are in that high committed state. I love working with them right there because we can start to get some results right away. And that's going to fuel more commitment in the future. So it comes down to high commitment right when you start. It's also going to come down to multiple actions. I find that specifically for people who are results oriented, want change quickly, willing to do what it takes, they want to take not just one action towards it, they want to take several. So we create an action plan for them, right? Where they're taking several actions a day to get to that goal. And it's great because if you're like me, I love to make a list of them, and I have made a list of them for April, and I'm just checking them off each and every day. And that feels good to me. That's a dopamine hit for my brain, and it fuels me to want to take the next action and wake up the next day and take a series of actions again. And then seeing the result starting to come through feels amazing and fuels me. And that's the momentum I'm talking about. So the formula for faster change, right, looks at where's your commitment level, like I mentioned, and then we go right into the next level, which is what are the actions that are those power moves that you're going to take towards your goal. Now, each of those moves is important. So that's not the fluff. I've seen a lot of ladies want to put fluff on their action plan. I'm like, that sounds like fluff to me. Or maybe it's something that should be like number 15 on the list and they're wanting to put it as number 3. It's like, well, there's many more actions that are going to get you to your goal quicker. And let's think about those first before we go to those ones that may be easier to do, but that aren't going to be as most impactful. Okay. And so when it comes to that commitment, we've got number of actions. And then to really implement this process where you're really getting change that's going to stick, it's doing the identity work. And I love doing self-identity work because if you can think about that future self and bring that future self into the present and start owning that identity the day you start your action plan and each day that you're carrying out your action plan and each day you're in this faster to change cycle, the more you start seeing yourself in the mirror differently, the more you start speaking about yourself and your capabilities differently, the more you start seeing that, oh, I'm learning this capability and I'm learning to add this to my abilities list, right? And you start seeing yourself differently. And that feels good too, especially if it's a change you want. So going back to the place where I was an overdrinker, basically every time I was around alcohol, to becoming an overdrinker just sometimes when I'm around alcohol, to becoming an overdrinker hardly ever when I'm around alcohol was amazing. But I wasn't changing the story about just over drinking. I was also changing my story around alcohol. I was also changing the story around my triggers. I was also changing my story around the urges that I felt, right? So when people think of identity work, they think they're just how they're viewing themselves. And I want to say there's multiple layers to identity shifting. Not just how you view yourself, it's how you're viewing all those things between you and where you want to go. And so breaking that down with my clients is so much fun because they're like, wow, I've never heard it expressed in this way. And this feels empowering rather than shameful and embarrassing. So I wanted to give you this beautiful framework because I know spring is a beautiful time that we may get more energy. The sun is out. We get fueled by the birth that we're seeing in nature and the new trees and the new flowers and the new smells and the birds that are singing. And the time, that we have daylight out is very empowering for a lot of people. And they feel like, yes, this is like my time of cleaning out old things. I know a lot of people do a spring refresh of their house, their closet. They start embarking on new projects. And then sometimes they feel like, oh, now's the time I want to up-level my health. I want to take better care of myself. Summer is coming. I want a little bit of change in my life. And how can I go about that and get it quicker? Because we know change is going to be uncomfortable no matter what. And if we can embrace that discomfort so we can get there faster, then we create more momentum for ourselves and we can capitalize on that identity shift even quicker. So we know, my friends, that tomorrow will always come until the day it won't, right? But tomorrow will come and we don't have to take the slow route to get there. We could take the faster route to get to our goals. And so I wanted to talk about ways to do that. Now, as I conclude this podcast, I ran across an old email that I got from Light Watkins. He is a spiritual coach, teacher, meditator, and I just think when he speaks, when he writes, he has so much wisdom. And what he wrote in this email that I save and I read about a couple of times out of the month, just to remind myself of how much I am in control of things and centering myself on great wisdom. His email came to mind and I wanted to share it with you. So his email is entitled, Your Health Insurance. Your health insurance is not the amount you pay to your insurance provider each month. That's more like your accident insurance. Your actual health insurance is funded by your daily lifestyle actions, including meditation, walking, being of service, exercise, play, creative expression, etc. In other words, positive actions performed on a consistent basis ensures less sickness and better health. And every day is another opportunity to make sure you're covered. I love this so much. We often put our health in other people's hands. We often wait to get the diagnosis, wait to see what the labs come back and say, and wait and just kind of pigeonhole health as that's between my doctor or provider and myself. And that's a one-time check-in once a year, an annual checkup or twice a year checkup or whatever it is. But I love the way he frames it. It's like, no, it's the daily things you do that prevent illness, that prevent sickness, and lead to better health. And I love how he beautifully captured that in that email that I have saved. So my friends, if you want faster change, I want to encourage you to go all in and get it. Use the criteria I talked about in this podcast and have you fuel your transformation, have it fuel your change process and get you better results and better health. All right, my beautiful friend, I will see you in the next episode.